Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we have for you one of the newest absolute black belts. He is the coach that takes the morning classes at Absolute St Kilda and takes a lot of other classes too. He's a really great guy, has a lot of stories to tell, I'm sure, and looking forward to hearing some of them. We bring to you Tom Everett. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
How are you guys? Good to see you.
Yeah, good, buddy. Good. Looks like you got some decent cauliflower going on there, brother. So
yeah, mate.
Nice.
This has been going since like the first couple months of
been
training.
working on it. Like since white belt. That's when you get cauliflowering them mostly. I don't know. Like that's when I got mine. This side. Like I'm nothing. I'm a white belt in the cauliflower game in comparison to you, of course. But you know, like how does that start? Like, I'm sorry, when it starts then, but did it stop? Because for me, it stopped. Like I don't know. I just stopped putting myself in that position. It looks like for you, maybe you went a bit. You kind of kept going.
Yeah, mine kept going a little bit, but I could probably even tell you the exact day it started.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
please.
Go on.
I know for sure the culprit was Craig. Definitely.
Fuck Craig Jones. I believe that there's some sort of t-shirt that says that, as far as I know.
His name comes up all the time on this podcast, doesn't it, for stuff like this? So
never for anything good, I can guarantee that.
Yeah. So tell us, Tom, how you started at Jiu-Jitsu. Was that with Craig? I think you started in Adelaide, is that right?
Yeah, I started doing Krav Maga initially because like I watched some of a UFC fight at the pub one time when I was drunk, and I was just like, that looks fun. So started with Krav Maga because I didn't really know what to do or where to start.
So sorry, you watched UFC and took out of that the Krav Maga element.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know where to start.
Okay, yeah, sorry. No, go on. Just that's the first. Yeah, go on.
I was working with this guy at the time, and he was training Krav Maga at this place in Adelaide. And he was just like, yeah, we do all the same stuff. He's like,
okay,
it's like more street oriented, like more real or something.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, sweet. So I started there, but everyone was all weirdos, like all introverts, and you see the same people.
Every martial art has a type, doesn't they? They have a type.
Oh, yeah. If you think Jiu-Jitsu's got weirdos, fucking try Krav Maga.
So what happened? How'd you make the switch?
Well, I couldn't really get into it because everyone was so strange. But so I did it kind of on and off for like 2 to 3 years or something like that. Like I would go a couple times a week, and then I wouldn't go for like a month or 2 months. They got good value out of my membership at that place. I never turned up.
I know a few people doing jiu-jitsu like that. But anyway,
probably too many.
Yeah.
But,
the per capita amount of crazy people in jiu-jitsu is lower probably than in Krav Maga.
I don't know. That could be
paranoid for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like managing bottle-os for BWS at the time. And Craig was at uni, but he was working in a different store, so I didn't know him. And then he came to work for me a couple times and just got chatting. He said he was training at this place in Adelaide that I'd heard of before, just like from other mates and things like that who dropped through. So I told him I wanted to maybe have an MMA fight one day. And then he said, yeah, come down, train with us, try some jiu-jitsu. So I went down and just got smashed all day, every day for like 10 years.
Wow. Sounds fun, man. Sounds fun.
Yeah. So yeah, when I started, he was a purple belt. Yep. So yeah, I was the play toy for him and Lockie Warren for pretty much the whole time in Adelaide, and then Melbourne as well. And then Lockie Warren's moved back to Adelaide now, but yeah, just I was the favourite chew toy for a little while.
What was Craig Jones showing signs of jiu-jitsu genius back then as well? Like, I mean, obviously you wouldn't have been able to really tell, but you know, was he kind of pegged as a phenom back then, or was he just a guy training?
Yeah, everyone, I think when I started, most people sort of knew of him in Australia.
Right.
And then I don't know what he used to do like before I got there, but when I started training, he would just travel interstate, go wherever he had to go to get like competing tournaments. There was no super fight matches or anything like that back in the day. He said if you wanted to get noticed, you have to win your weight class, you have to win open weight. So
nice.
Which is pretty much how it used to go. So
Cool.
Yeah, him and Lockie Warren would travel all over Australia, closed out like every purple belt. Like I think they were doing lightweight at the time, 73 or 79 kilos or something. So they would close out like every weight class and open weight that they would do. And then, just the name built from there. And I think San Fran International Open as a purple belt was when everyone realized that like he could do pretty well on the world stage.
So lucky to have come up around that, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, you definitely feel like anything's possible, which is a little bit of a lie sometimes considering my attitude.
And so what brought you to Melbourne, Tom? Was it sort of following on from Craig? He'd done it and then you followed there, or what?
Yeah, I'd been training for like 3 years in Adelaide. And I was obsessed enough to the point that like I traveled to the States. I think I'd been a blue belt for like a couple months, traveled to the States and trained at Atos, and trained in Vegas with Drysdale as well. Zenith, I think it was called.
Yep.
So went over there for like 3 weeks and just realized like the level of jiu-jitsu and the level of training that people did. I'd never think in my first gym, we used to roll like 3 or 4 minute rounds sometimes. And then if we were preparing for comps, you'd roll 5-minute rounds. And even then it was like not a lot of rounds and not a lot of intensity a lot of the time either. So I went to the States. I saw a white belt tap a purple belt on the mats for the first time. And I was like, oh, I think I said to Craig at the time, I was like, does that happen? And he was like, yeah, that happens. And I was like, fuck, I've never seen that before.
Wow.
So I realized the level over there and pretty much said to him, like, I wanted to train full time. I was working full time, but I wanted to quit full-time work and then train. So I think he won like purple belt worlds and had qualified for ADCC 2015. And Giles had invited him over to Melbourne to train. And he said it was just like awesome training over here. You could train like twice a day, every day, pretty much like do whatever. So after, actually, I think he went to ADCC first and then maybe won No-Gi Worlds after that. But pretty much Giles just offered him a job teaching over in Melbourne. And yeah, Craig called me up and said, oh, if you want to take it seriously, like we could, because we'd already left our gym at the time. We were just training in my living room pretty much.
Wow.
Just me, him, Warren, and a couple other mates. One of my housemates at the time was a purple belt as well. Then we had another good mate, Simon Cho, that would come round. And Craig would basically just beat the shit out of us like for a couple of hours. And then that was like his No-Gi Worlds prep. That and maybe coming to Melbourne a little bit. So we essentially had nowhere to train. We left our gym and there's like, at the time, there was barely any cross training in Adelaide at all.
So why did you leave? Because it sounds like risky, right? If you want to make jiu-jitsu a big thing and then you decide, so fuck it, we're going to train in a lounge room and try and work out jiu-jitsu for ourselves. Like what was the motive behind that?
Yeah, well, Craig and Lockie, they were both purple belts at the time, and they'd pretty much been teaching themselves for quite a while. So, and they were my main training partners at the time. And then there was a bit of like internal politics at the gym we were at as well. And we would go to comps and stuff, and guys would come up to me and say, oh, come to our gym, come train. Like, we'd love to train with you, do all this stuff. And we'd have to say every time, like, oh, we're not allowed, like, no cross training, this and that. And some guys, like most people would understand because their gym was sort of the same. But every now and then people would be like, what are you doing? Just come train. And I never got it at the time because I was like, nah, you can't disobey. Like
in a jealous relationship, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's toxic. But so essentially we left and I would visit a couple of gyms that we had mates at, and I would train there every now and then. And then, Craig said he got offered a job. I was working in a bar and managing a bottle at the time. So I was like, well, I can just get bar work in Melbourne pretty easy. So we conferenced Lockie Warren into the call, and I think he took even less convincing than me. So then the next step was to call my parents and tell them that at 26 I was quitting full-time work and just going to do this weird sport that you don't get paid for. So.
Wow. Sounds like fun.
But look at how it's worked out for you now, yeah? So, like, because you've been here, what, about 6-7 years?
Yeah, it'll be, I think Boxing Day will be 7 years. Yeah. I was going to come for one. As a typical blue belt, I said I'll come for a year, and if I haven't made it in Jiu-Jitsu, I'll come back to Adelaide. Thinking that as a blue belt, you can make it in
Jiu-Jitsu and come back to Adelaide.
Yeah. But after 3 months in Melbourne, I was just like, nah, I'm not moving back.
Wow, man.
Yeah, no, I think you could definitely say you've made it in Jiu-Jitsu now, and you had a pretty memorable run at the ADCC trials. Unfortunately for you, didn't get the ticket, didn't get all the way through, and perhaps for anybody that may have missed it, you took a bit of an injury. I might just share my screen here, Anton, if you don't mind. Let's see how I go with this.
Yeah, go, I'm such a pro lately.
Oh, wait, no, you've disabled my screen sharing. Look at us. This is what I'm talking about.
There we go.
There we go. So I'm going to share my screen here and just
Kim's the captain
see
now.
that here. And this is for any of our people who actually watch our podcast instead of just listen to it. I don't know if you can see here. See my screen?
He's missing the lower half of his face, everybody, if you're just watching if you're just listening on
any of our platforms, yeah. So could you tell us about this? What happened here?
Yeah, I think it made a lot of people happy thinking that I'd finally been gagged.
No luck.
I didn't really think it was that bad at the time. I was just wrestling the guy in my first match. And I was wearing a mouth guard, so I don't really know how it happened or what. I think my lip must have hit my bottom teeth or something, but I was just looking down as his head came up, and I barely felt it, but he apologized for it like during the match. I just kind of like shook my head, and he like looked down, and then he looked back up and like kind of gave this startled look because I just had blood running down my face. And so judging by his look, I was like, oh, well, he's probably not good, but oh, well. And then kept wrestling, and then, just leaving like blood all over the mat. So we had to stop the match. I think the match went for 9 minutes because we went to overtime. So went 9 minutes, but the actual start to finish that I was on the mat was like 18 or 19 minutes or something. Just keep stopping.
Judging by your nipples, I think it turned you on, man.
What can I say? I said there's a lot of weirdos in Jiu-Jitsu as well.
That's the Krav Maga rubbing off on you, man.
Yeah. I didn't leave soon enough.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. What about like when you got your black belt? Because like even I sometimes think, oh, what am I going to say when I get my black belt? Very presumptuous, but I really hope to get there one day. But like, what was the standout thing to you? Do you do speeches with Giles? I don't know because I've never watched his grading. But what was your speech like? What really hit home for you about getting your black belt?
He does speeches. So knowing that I was getting my black belt like a couple of weeks before, I probably should have prepared something instead of just flying by the seat of my pants. But so he does speeches. This time he did just before the rolling part, or was it just before the ceremony? Yeah, just before the rolling part, he says to us, "Oh, you have to teach a technique as well." So can't remember how many. Do you remember, Kim, how mgi black belts went out? I think there was like 5.
I think there was 4 or 5. Yeah, I think 1 or 2 didn't do this. You definitely did. You did a very good technique in the gi, by the way, too. Which for anybody that doesn't know, Tom's not a fan of the gi, but he still teaches it very well. Theo loves your classes on Saturdays. So.
Theo's great. He soaks it up for a big guy. He's actually interested in how a technique works.
Exactly. For sure. He's sad he can't come to your classes anymore because he's a blue belt now. So they're meant for beginners. But he loves the detail that you give in all of your techniques. So definitely.
That's good. Yeah, he loves all the little details of technique, but then he's always like, can I just go to Kezagatami? Like,
that's the way.
I try explaining like how important underhooks are and stuff. And he's like, yeah, but if I just get the scaffold.
That's right. Smash. Exactly. 100%. Yeah, what I remember from Tom's speech, if I can paraphrase it, was that his advice to people is just to shut up and take your beatings.
Yeah,
because that's the reality. That he said that as a coach, he gets a lot of people asking him questions about how can I improve or how can I do this and that. Tom, you can probably explain it better, but yeah, I think that's sort of a really good philosophy for everybody in jiu-jitsu. You know, don't question it, just keep showing up.
Yeah, exactly. There's I think every now and then I sound like a grumpy old man, but every now and then it's just kind of annoying, like people ask how to bypass like that part of jiu-jitsu. And it's like, yeah, there's some freaks out there that rarely get tapped, or you know, they come in and you know they just start smashing people and stuff like that. But for most people, like probably 99% of people, it's not really that way. So you get a lot of people saying, oh, you know, this guy's beating me up all the time, that guy's beating me up all the time. I'm saying, well, you've been training what, like a year, 2 years? This guy's been training 10, 12 years, something like that. Can even be a purple belt who's been training for maybe 6 years, beating up a white belt or a blue belt every day. And the white belt or blue belt's like, man, why does this keep happening? That's the way it's supposed to be. But
do you encourage like a conversation about it though? Like I do get, you know, not wanting to lose. Like I think the context of that conversation is interesting to me, because like somebody who's genuinely looking like people like a puzzle to solve, or wanting to improve their jiu-jitsu, but not pissed off about losing per se, seems like a good conversation to have. Is that fair? Is it like the way that they come to you about it, which makes you grumpy? Because, you know, like if I came to you and I'm like, hey man, you know, this is happening to me and I'm losing in this way. Have you got any tips on what I should do to not lose that way? Is that a bad conversation, or is that
I think it's a good conversation. I think you're right. It's the way they approach it. They give you the sad puppy look and they're like, I'm getting beaten up. And you're like, well, yeah, that's going to happen.
I hear you, brother. But, I definitely.
Like when I started, I was always pretty keen to get amongst it when I started. But when I first started jiu-jitsu, no new person started for 3 months after me, maybe like 2 to 3 months. And then the guy who started most recently before me had still been training for maybe close to a month or something. And he was going every day. I was going maybe like twice a week or something. So I didn't get my first submission for like the first 3 months of training. So I had no positive reinforcement. I think one time I hit a sweep and I just got super excited. But yeah, Pete, I think it's, for sure. But yeah, I think it's a good conversation to have for sure. It's just people sometimes overestimate how quick they should get success or something like that. I mean, it's great to have high hopes and like shoot for the stars and everything, but when you get that constant reality check of kind of where you're at, I think you just can't get too emotionally invested. Otherwise, you're going to be super depressed. Because actually, I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, I think it was our mate in London, Aidan Woodhouse. He owns London Grapple with Ross Nichols.
Cool.
He's a Melbourne guy as well. Fastest learning white belt I've ever seen. But
get him on the show, man. Get him on the show.
We should get him on. Yeah. Sure. We're always looking to expand.
I'll hook you guys up with him. He's a really super smart guy. He was training at Collingwood when Craig was around, and I would be like the dummy for the privates sometimes. And the first like couple of months, I'll kind of muck around, play around, and then after like a couple of months of rolling with Aidan, I was like, oh shit, like I can't really mess around anymore. Cool. But yeah, he's really good. But I was talking to him about it, and I think we were saying if you look at jiu-jitsu day by day, like you're going to get super depressed and real confused, because you're like, Monday, you're pretty shit. Tuesday, have a great day. Wednesday, you're getting battered by the guy you beat up yesterday. Thursday, you're broken, you're sore, you're tired. Everyone's beating you up. Friday, you might like have an okay day, or you might pick your rolls or something like that. But you know you lied to yourself. But if you look
pretty
at
accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, if you looked at it over like 6 months, you're gonna actually see progression. I don't think you really see progression day by day or even week by week. It's like it takes a couple of months.
I really like
That's
that.
it. Yeah. And Tom, you recently or earlier this year, you went over to Texas and trained with the B team.
Yeah.
How was that? Tell us about that. Like you were talking about like the level of training earlier. How is that over there? How does that compare?
Yeah. That was another one of those depressing times.
You're annoying yourself with your sadness, your sad puppiness.
Gave myself the sad puppy look. But it actually took some of the fun out of getting my black belt, I think, in all honesty.
Wow.
But it was great. Like there's a few things I've been playing with when I've been training, and I wasn't quite sure if I was on the right track. Because it's different to Lockie's style. I would use like kind of try and copy some of Lockie Giles's like back tape kind of stuff. But I've really been trying to work more of a top game that was more suited to my style, my body. I wasn't sure if I was really on the right track. I had a couple of vague ideas that I hadn't really committed to. And then going to Texas, I saw the way that they train and the way they roll and the things they're trying to do. And it was like in the same direction that I was going. I'm not going to say I know exactly what they're doing and I had the idea as well, but it was, if you go left or right, we were both like kind of, they'd gone right and I was looking at going right kind of thing.
Wow. Interesting.
So I found it really exciting. I think the way, if Jiu-Jitsu and grappling in general keeps going the same way, like, guys trying to wrestle up from guard, heavy wrestling, like at B team, if you want to play top, you have to put them down. Like you can't just start a roll with one person standing, one person sitting. I don't think that happened at all the whole time I was there. So if you want to play top, you take them down. If you want to play bottom, then, maybe you take them down and then give up a sweep or something. I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, is a very fun style of jiu-jitsu and just brutal too. Like actually I left there and I felt like I'd been beaten up. Like it was some of the
sorry.
Sorry?
No, you go.
I was gonna say some of the worst beatings I've ever taken.
Amazing.
It was
remnants of the garage days, was it all that chemistry still there and everything's the same, but they're in a direction now, or was it a different?
Was it even worse because by now you were a brown belt? So
by then it was definitely the worst beatings I've ever taken, for sure. Like I hadn't rolled with Craig for a couple of years, I think, but he beat me worse then than when I was a white belt and he was a purple belt.
Wow.
Anything I tried, like I ended up, there's a couple of good videos on Reddit and YouTube of him just beating the shit out of me. Like we rolled pretty much every day I was there, but they filmed like 2 rolls and it was essentially how the entire thing went. And it was like anything I tried, I didn't know if he was playing guard. I didn't know if I wanted to touch his feet, touch his head, try and get onto his hips. Like I stood there and I was like, I felt like day one again. I just didn't know what to do.
All dangerous. Anything you touch on Craig Jones is dangerous. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And then, you just end up just letting him lead you around and then like curl you up into a little bowl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything and then it flows down too. Like there's a lot of great guys like Sterling Melman, JB, like John Betchloff, Joseph Chen as well. All those guys were just beating the shit out of me every day. Yeah.
So we should, they've got a pretty good chance then at the ADCC. You feel like they're going to be right up there?
Yeah, for sure. I don't even, like this year won't even be the peak for sure. Like I think if you were to, I was there for 2 weeks, but I only trained for 5 days because I got staffed pretty bad while I was there. But of all the guys I saw, like the room's very deep, like very deep. I went to West Coast trials when I think the day I landed, the next day was trials in Vegas. So I went over with them just to watch, and they had so many guys competing. and like a couple of them maybe like didn't compete as well as they could have or whatever, but like, oh, I saw some of them compete and I was like, oh yeah, they're pretty decent. And then you see them in the training room and they're just phenomenal. It's like, he just had like a sort of a rough day. But yeah, all the guys there, like anyone could qualify, like especially if they were in Asia, Oceania. They're in like the toughest region to try and qualify.
You guys are like experimental jiu-jitsu heroes, you know what I mean? Like, like for me, I go there, I do a technique, I do some rolls, I'm improving incrementally. I feel good about my jiu-jitsu. It brings me a lot of joy. But you guys are like zoomed out. You're looking at jiu-jitsu as like this kind of, which trajectory am I going to go on? Like, I wouldn't even be able to think like that. You know what I mean? I just don't know what I don't know, to the point where that's beyond my comprehension, right? But how far along do you think jiu-jitsu is in its evolution? Like, do you think it's 80% to maxed out? Do you think it's 20%? Like, where are we at in the growth of jiu-jitsu?
I got no idea, to be honest. Things change all the time. Like the buggy choke comes along, happens maybe a couple times. Everyone's like, it's just bullshit. Like, it's just a weird thing that some weird flexible guy can do. And then more people start doing it. And then all of a sudden, side control isn't a good position anymore.
Amazing.
So things like that kind of changed the game a little bit. And then now the B team guys, they don't really look to pass to side control. It's like they'll go to mount with double underhooks or something like that, or they ride the legs, ride the hips to really lock people down until they get the back. And then while I was over there, the back wasn't even good enough. Like, they want you flattened out, belly down, and them choking you and like Amazing. Trapping a hand underneath. Like, they want to take away every single option. So
I love this, man. Holy shit, I love this. You are actually one of my favorite guests to talk to, man. You just have this really...
He says that to everyone, Tom. Don't believe it.
True. I do say it a lot, but I'm really enjoying this conversation, man. Like, I feel like you need to keep us informed. You're the closest one to the flame of what's happening in like the evolution of jiu-jitsu right now that we've spoken to in a long time. That's for sure, man. And I really chat. Yeah.
There's a couple other guys like Matty Clark down at Peninsula MMA. He goes over to B team all the time. He's even closer than I am.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's looking to go over every couple of months and spend a month or something.
Wow.
But he loves it over there as well. I think he's a true Texan at heart.
Awesome.
And Tom, you've made no secret of your dislike of the gi. Do you think that is dead? What do you think? Do you think that no gi is the only way? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I sell gis for progress, so I don't want to say the gi's dead.
Except for progress, the gi is dead.
Yeah. I actually think the majority of the classes that I teach at Absolute are actually gi.
That's right. It's funny, isn't it? And yet, and you've got a huge following too. That was, I was going to ask, go on about that, but I wanted to also say that people in the mornings just love you. Like, you can get people there on the mat at 6:30 a.m. So yeah, you've got obviously some special secrets in your teaching that is getting people there at that time.
Yeah, just let them roll. The morning people are like a different breed of person again. They're all just regular, like either they work 9 to 5 and they're obsessed with jiu-jitsu, so they still want to train, or their parents or something like that. I think anyone there's a couple guys who maybe train during the day as well. They might come in super early just because they're a morning person or something, but it's definitely a tough thing to do. I wouldn't go at 6:30 unless they're paying me for it.
But sorry, I interrupted you. Go on what you were saying about like the evolution of no gi, like how it's
the gi and stuff. I don't think the gi's dead. I don't think it's dead at all, but I still enjoy training in the gi and I like teaching in the gi, but I just can't like commit any time to training gi. So like if I want to get good at something, I'd rather get good at no gi, where there's more of a chance of getting paid. There's a lot more no-gi shows going on where you can maybe travel somewhere cool and do a like a no-gi show or like a super fight show or a tournament somewhere. The crossover with MMA as well, I think, which is like good for no-gi grappling. Like, it opens up a lot of opportunities.
Any plans for that for you?
MMA? No. Just
Okay.
I'm talking like just in terms of techniques and things like that.
Yeah.
Like recently, you know how MMA guys will sit in half guard quite a lot of the time. They won't bother passing half guard because they can lock down the hips and batter them. But like the B team guys are kind of doing that. Like they lock down the hips either in a half guard or some kind of smash position, which is, you know, it changes the game again. So I think for me anyway, from what I can see, like I don't watch a lot of gi jiu-jitsu anymore at all, but I think no gi is changing a lot quicker and is a lot more exciting to watch than gi. So I think that is going to draw more spectators, so like more money. And then as people start cross-training more and more with like MMA guys, adds like another dimension. So
okay, I've got an idea forming here. Like Ken and Ryu, like cut off gis. That's where we need to go. Like gi material, no gi style. That's the next thing, man. I'm predicting it. It's happening, man.
You can still use the collars.
Yes. And a belt, why not? It'll look pretty weird. A lot of Krav Maga people are going to do it. I'm going to get the Krav Maga gi on board.
Just tell them it'll work on the streets and you'll get them in.
So good, man. So good.
I don't mean to talk shit on Krav Maga at all. Like it's definitely, it's probably a lot of benefits, but there was one technique they showed one time where they're like, you're in side control. They say, they showed an escape. They go, if you go to any jiu-jitsu gym and do this escape, they'll have no idea what's going on. Oh. And then I was like, oh yeah, cool. So when I went into my first day at jiu-jitsu, the guy was like, well, I'm just going to start in side control. You know, he taught me some escapes. And he's like, you just try and get out. So I was like, yeah, I got one for you. And then, end up laying there under side control for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's when you realized that jiu-jitsu was the way and not Krav Maga anymore, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. I'd pretty much already decided, but that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, man, I do hope you will come back on from time to time. It's definitely one of those guests that I think we're not done. This is not cooked, this conversation. There's more to uncover, bro, especially on your journey and when you choose your trajectory and then you implement these things. And I'm keen to know about this stuff. Like this is zoomed out from what we normally talk about, man. So if you could please circle back, a couple of times a year or something, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll come back as many times as you guys want. People are usually trying to shut me up. So
cool.
And you said this, you don't mean to shit talk. This is what this podcast is for. I think it's mostly a shit talking place. I heard someone describe it as like listening to people at an open mat. So
Cool.
That's what people want to hear. So any final words, any parting thoughts?
Nothing too crazy. Just come in and train at 6:30 in the morning in St Kilda. We need some numbers for those Wednesday and Monday gear classes. They're pretty quiet.
Especially if you do Krav Maga. Come and try it out.
Yeah, come try it out. We'll take you in the car park and we'll see if jiu-jitsu works.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Tom. And we look forward to, as Anton said, where your journey goes, and look forward to seeing you on the mat.
Yeah, thanks heaps for having me, guys. Yeah, we'll definitely come back.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Okay. See ya.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Bye.